Well, we've talked, I think, in a separate video about what Plato's theory of the forms is and how it comes out of the cave. But to put it another way, why would we care what Plato says? What has this theory got that means it should be recommended to us? Why would we care what he's got to say about this? Why is it still taught today?
Well, as I said in the previous video, there is no theory of forms in Plato. He never talks about a theory of forms. It's reconstructed by philosophers that come after him. So I do think you have to be careful about Plato's theory of forms. But why would we find it interesting? Clearly, Plato isn't a stupid man, so I'd say that, let's read Plato and let's take him seriously. But I think that you have to ask yourself, what was the problem for Plato? Why did he feel that he had to come up with a theory of forms if such a thing existed? And I think Plato wanted to say, without some notion of universality and objectivity, we couldn't actually ever claim that we know anything. And if we can't really claim that anybody knows anything objectively, then for Plato, our knowledge would based in the end be on violence. Who could speak the loudest, who could have the most power, would be the most knowledgeable. You couldn't claim to have knowledge objectively. So these are important ethical and political issues for Plato. They're not merely just metaphysical or epistemological. Would you like me to say something briefly about what I think the theory of forms is?
Yes.
Even though I said, you have to be careful about it.
Yeah, go on.
I think the secret for understanding Plato is he's inspired by mathematics. When Plato set up his school of philosophers, you weren't really allowed to do philosophy until you had done mathematics for thousands of years. Well, not thousands, clearly. For 14 years. Yeah. So for him, to understand knowledge is to understand mathematics. So what struck Plato is that in mathematical knowledge, as the example that I gave, I think, in ethics, mathematical knowledge is certain. So if you understand numbers and addition, you know 2 + 2 = 4. If you understand triangles and geometry, you know that triangles have 3 sides. This isn't up for debate. So Plato wants to say, what is a mathematical object? Now we might think that a triangle is the shape you draw on a piece of paper, but if that was the case, the colour you drew the triangle in would be part of the definition, the actual shape of the triangle in terms of the thickness of the line would be part of the definition. Now, it's not possible for any human being to draw a perfect triangle. It'd always be slightly out. But the idea of the triangle, that has nothing to do with the paper you've drawn the triangle on, the shape of the line or the colour of the line. The idea of the triangle is perfect.
So it's a distinction between instances of this idea and instantiations of it on paper, and the idea in abstract.
Yeah, but the mathematical object is a completely different kind of thing. The thing to understand with Plato is he wants to say there are 2 types of reality. There's a reality of physical objects, like this table I've just struck with my fist.
The one with the camera's on.
Which is just caused the picture to shake. And the reality of mathematical objects. These mathematical objects are real for Plato. They're not imaginary. My mind can think them, but their truthfulness and their reality is separate from my mind. They're not the same reality as objects of the physical world, but they're equally, if not more real for Plato, because they're more perfect than physical things.
So is this why some people refer to Plato as being a metaphysical dualist?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
There's 2 sorts of things. Yeah.
But I think what is difficult for us to possibly grasp is that ideas for Plato are real. So the distinction between particular things like tables and the idea of tables is not a conceptual difference for Plato, it's ontological. 2 types of being. He wants to say the idea of being is more perfect and more real than the physical thing. Now, if you go back to the example of mathematics, you'll understand why he thinks that, because he would say the actual triangles that you write or draw on a piece of paper are produced by the idea of triangle. If we didn't have the idea of triangle...
And they're less perfect.
We wouldn't have actual triangles in the world. So that's why the mathematical object or the idea has more being than the...
So dualism has a kind of qualitative hierarchy.
It does, yeah.
Okay, thank you.